So I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that you are training for the Olympics.
Okay, high stakes.
Right. Extremely high stakes. You've totally dedicated your life to this. You're going for gold in the 100-meter dash. But your training regimen is uniquely bizarre.
Bizarre how.
Well, you skip the gym entirely. Like, you never step foot on a practice track. You don't review any game tape. You don't run drills. You don't even stretch.
Oh, wow. So you're just doing nothing.
Basically, your entire strategy is to simply show up to the main event, the actual globally televised race every single day, and just expect that by running the real race over and over, you're going to set new world records.
Yeah, that sounds completely absurd.
Exactly. You'd be laughed out of the stadium. And yet, if you really step back and analyze it, this is exactly how most of us approach our professional careers.
It really is. It's like
Right.
the absolute default setting of the modern working world. We expect this gold medal performance from ourselves and our teams without ever dedicating a single minute to, stepping onto a practice field.
And that bizarre disconnect is exactly what we are getting into today. We are pulling from this fascinating new article from the Phoenix Performance
Yeah,
Partners.
great piece.
It's titled The Corporate Athlete, Treating Leadership as a Craft. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore why we view athletic performance entirely differently than leadership, and how realizing this massive difference is the secret to breaking out of your career plateau.
What makes this article so compelling, I think, is how it connects the dots between sports psychology and corporate culture.
Right.
It forces us to challenge everything we naturally assume about the value of quote-unquote experience. Like we think we know what it takes to climb the ladder and get better at our jobs.
But the data says otherwise, right?
Exactly. The data suggests our entire methodology is just completely upside down.
Well, let's jump right into that data because there's a specific graphic mentioned in the article that went totally viral on LinkedIn. Oh, the Kevin Davis one.
Yes, exactly. It was shared by a partner at the firm named Kevin Davis, and it lays out a stark, almost unbelievable contrast.
It's staggering.
It really is. So when you look at professional athletes, they spend roughly 90% of their time training and only 10% of their time actually performing in the game.
90 to 10.
Right. But when you look at corporate leaders, it is the exact inverse.
Yeah.
Corporate leaders spend 95% of their time performing and a mere 5% training.
That 95 to 5 ratio is just, I mean, when you actually visualize it, it highlights a fundamental misunderstanding of how human beings improve at complex tasks.
Yeah, it's like a musician who only ever plays live, sold-out concerts, but absolutely never practices their scales behind closed doors.
Exactly. In the corporate world, we operate under this underlying assumption that the daily game is the practice.
Right, like the game and the practice are the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
We think that just by doing the job, answering the endless emails, running the quarterly review meetings, putting out fires, that we are automatically getting better at those things.
Right, but the article brings in this fantastic quote from Tom Lillis and Brad Zimmerman that pierces right through that logic.
Oh, I love this quote.
It's so good. They point out something simple but profound. They say, successful Olympic athletes have coaches. You don't even get to the Olympics without one.
Yeah.
And what that tells me is that the business world completely conflates execution with development. Like, we just throw people onto the field and demand flawless execution every day.
We do. And that lack of a coaching structure, it completely changes the stakes of failure.
How so?
Well, in sports, an athlete can fail in practice. They can try a new technique, fall flat on their face, and it's fine. The environment is actually designed for failure.
Right, because the coach corrects the mechanic and they just try again.
Exactly. But a corporate executive, they are terrified of failing in the boardroom because it is always game day.
Always game day. There's no safe space to break down their mechanic.
None. So they never try new techniques. They just rely on whatever got them through the last meeting.
But, let's look at the pushback this idea inevitably gets. Because whenever you compare sports to business, people immediately say,
Apples to oranges.
exactly. They point out that comparing a perfectly lit, rigidly timed basketball game to a chaotic corporate boardroom might not be a fair fight.
And it's a vital question. The
Yeah.
article details some very sharp critique on this exact front.
Right.
The strongest argument against the sports analogy revolves around the nature of the environments themselves. Psychologists categorize environments into two types: kind and wicked.
Let's unpack that because this completely shifts how we have to think about training.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a kind environment is one with clear rules, defined boundaries, and immediate, accurate feedback.
It's like chess.
Exactly. Think about a game of chess. Every piece moves in a specific way. You can see the entire board. When you make a move, the consequence is immediate and obvious.
Okay.
Sports, largely, are kind environments. You shoot the basketball, it goes through the hoop, or it bounces off the rim. The feedback loop is closed in seconds.
But leadership, and really the corporate world at large, operates in a wicked environment.
Wicked.
Yes, the rules are ambiguous. They're constantly shifting based on, the macroeconomy, client moods, internal politics.
Totally chaotic.
Highly complex. And most importantly, the feedback is delayed and unclear.
It's much more like playing poker than playing chess.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. In poker, you have hidden information. You can make the absolute mathematically correct decision based on the cards and still lose the hand entirely because of a lucky draw on the river.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the corporate world, it's the same thing. You might make a massive strategic decision to launch a product in January, and you don't actually know if it was the right call until, like, November.
If ever.
Right. And even then, it's incredibly muddy whether success or failure was due to your decision or just market luck.
Muddy is the perfect word. And a lot of leaders use this reality as an excuse.
An excuse not to train.
Exactly. They argue that because leadership is a wicked environment where the rules constantly change, a structured training model is useless. Like, you can't run drills for a chaotic situation that has never existed before.
So playing devil's advocate here, if I can't practice a specific scenario because the corporate poker game is always changing, shouldn't I just trust my gut and adapt in the moment?
See, the authors argue the exact opposite. They flip this critique brilliantly.
Okay, how?
They point out that this wicked reality actually makes the case for training much stronger, not weaker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because if the game you're playing is inherently chaotic and the feedback loops are broken, you cannot afford to rely on unexamined instincts.
Right.
You have to be vastly more intentional about your development. You need to train how you think, not just what you do.
I want to drill down on that mechanism training how you think because it sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like?
Yeah, it can sound abstract.
Yeah. Right. Like if I'm a leader in a wicked environment, I can't practice firing an employee the way I practice a free throw.
No, definitely not.
But I can train my cognitive processes.
Okay.
For example, before making a major financial projection, deliberate practice might mean formally writing out a premortem.
A premortem. I love those.
Right, where I list all my cognitive biases and predict exactly how the project might fail before it even starts.
Exactly.
I'm training my brain to recognize its own blind spots, rather than just reacting to the chaos when things go wrong.
That is exactly the kind of micro-skill training the wicked environment demands. You are building up your core capacities.
Like decision-making frameworks.
Yes, your decision-making frameworks, your emotional regulation under stress, your ability to synthesize conflicting information.
Right.
If you don't train those underlying cognitive muscles, the chaos of the corporate world will just completely overwhelm you.
Now, if adapting to a wicked environment means we can't just rely on standard situational drills, that kind of shatters the main metric companies use to gauge competence, doesn't it?
You mean tenure?
Exactly, tenure. We generally just assume someone who's survived the chaos for 10 or 15 years has mastered it. Which brings us to the danger of confusing tenure with actual mastery.
This is perhaps the most dangerous trap in the modern career arc.
Yeah.
Time spent doing a thing does not automatically equal skill acquired at that thing.
The article highlights a striking quote from a commenter named Maureen Metcalf that illustrates this perfectly. She said, "Experience alone doesn't create excellence, it creates repetition."
It creates repetition. Wow.
Isn't that great?
It is. Just think about how many times you've seen a manager handle a conflict poorly, but they handle it poorly the exact same way they've been doing it for a decade.
Yeah, it's exactly like driving a car.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, you could be driving your daily commute for 20 years. You navigate the traffic, you merge onto the highway, you get to the office.
Right.
But doing that commute for 2 decades does not turn you into a Formula One race car driver.
No, definitely not.
In fact, it just deeply cements 20 years of bad habits. You know, you hold the wheel with one hand, you brake too late, you zone out to your favorite deep dive audio content.
Guilty as charged.
Right. You survive the commute, so you label yourself a good driver, but your actual skill plateaued in like year 2.
That analogy perfectly isolates the problem.
Yeah.
We assume that 10 years of doing a corporate job is the same as 10 years of getting better at the corporate job.
Yeah.
But Without intentional intervention, experience just cements your bad driving habits.
So how do we fix it?
Well, to actually move from mere repetition to mastery, the article notes that you need three vital components.
Right, and we can't just expect people to absorb these components by osmosis.
Mhm.
To fix the bad commute, you need deliberate practice, real unfiltered feedback, and structured reflection.
Exactly.
Deliberate practice is what we touched on earlier, isolating a specific skill, like managing your tone during a hostile Q&A and practicing it intentionally.
Yeah.
And then the real feedback piece is where things usually fall apart in business. Because getting someone to tell you the truth about your blind spots in a polite, highly political corporate setting is nearly impossible.
It is. It's so hard, which is why structured reflection is the crucial third piece holding it together.
Structured reflex.
Right. And reflection doesn't just mean passively thinking about your day while driving home. It means actually building a structure around your performance.
What does that look like?
After a critical meeting, you sit down and formally ask, what was my intended outcome? What actually happened? Why was there a gap between the two?
Okay, yeah.
And most importantly, what specific variable will I change next time?
That makes total sense.
Because without that analytical structure, your brain just rationalizes whatever happened to protect your ego, and the bad habits get locked in deeper.
Okay, let's look at the bigger picture here.
Sure.
If deliberate practice, unfiltered feedback, and structured reflection are the proven mechanics for mastery, why aren't companies building this into their DNA?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. What is stopping the C-suite from operating like a coaching staff? Because if you ask any CEO, they will swear up and down that they want their people to constantly improve.
This gets to the dark underbelly of corporate psychology, and it's a fascinating sociological problem.
Okay, lay it on me.
The article reveals an unspoken belief that plagues organizations, especially at the highest levels. At the very top of the corporate ladder, ongoing development is quietly viewed as a signal of weakness.
Wait, really? A signal of weakness, the willingness to improve, is seen as a flaw.
Yes, because of the incredible pressure we put on executives to be omniscient.
Oh, I see.
There is a pervasive, quiet equation that senior leaders internalize where still learning equates to not ready.
Wow.
The implicit assumption is that by the time you reach the executive suite, you are supposed to have all the answers. Your title implies completion.
So asking for help is a liability.
Exactly. So if a vice president openly asks for a coach or engages in basic skills training, the perception among peers and the board is that they must be struggling. You are supposed to be a fully baked product.
But I have to challenge the idea that companies don't support learning because, well, from an investment standpoint, corporations spend millions of dollars on development.
They absolutely do.
They buy massive HR learning portals. They send out quarterly development memos. They pay for keynote speakers.
Oh, yeah, huge budgets.
Right. And they plaster mission statements on the wall saying, we are a culture of continuous learning. It's a massive industry.
The financial investment is totally real. But systems alone will not save us if the psychology is broken.
Ah, okay.
The authors point out a fundamental truth of human behavior inside an organization. People do not follow what is stated in a memo. They follow what is modeled by authority.
That distinction changes everything. Modeled behavior beats stated systems every time.
Always. You can have the most expensive state-of-the-art learning portal in the world. But if the chief operating officer never admits they are working on a flaw,
Right.
if the VP of sales never asks for coaching on a lost deal, no one below them is going to do it either.
Because the modeled behavior loudly broadcasts. Once you reach a certain level of success, you don't need this stuff anymore.
Exactly. As the article notes, athletes assume they will always need coaching. Executives assume they have arrived.
That's a great way to put it.
And until that core belief that ego protection shifts at the very top, no expensive system redesign is going to fix the leadership plateau.
So if you are a listener right now staring down this reality, we have a 95-5 corporate split where execution completely eclipses training.
Right.
We operate in a wicked, unpredictable poker game of an environment that demands more intentional practice, not less.
Yeah.
We have an entire workforce confusing 10 years of repetition with actual mastery. And we have an unspoken ego stigma at the top, preventing real coaching from taking root.
It's grim when you list it all out like that.
It sounds like a perfect storm for absolute career stagnation. So how do you apply this to your own life today to ensure you don't plateau?
Well, since we just established that waiting for a cultural shift from the C-suite or a new mandate from HR isn't going to fix things, the article makes it incredibly clear. You have to take radical ownership.
Radical ownership.
Yes. The first development journey worth mapping out is your own. You have to stop treating your development as an event and start treating it as a continuous journey.
I like that. To put that into practice, I want you, the listener, to audit one of your own recent training investments. Think back to an onboarding curriculum you went through, a manager boot camp, or even just a weekend leadership seminar.
Yeah, think about how you interacted with it.
Exactly. Look at how you interacted with it and ask yourself, was this just an isolated event?
Because for almost everyone, it is an isolated event.
Oh, totally.
We go to a 3-day seminar, we listen to great speakers, we get a giant binder full of fantastic frameworks, we feel deeply inspired.
And then we go back to our desks on Monday.
Right, and immediately get buried in 300 emails. The binder goes on a shelf to gather dust, and our actual behavior doesn't change one bit.
So what does the shift to a journey actually look like? What are the mechanics of moving past the dusty binder?
The blueprint is extending that single event across a much longer time horizon and weaving practice into the fabric of your existing work.
Give me an example.
So if you learned a new framework for handling conflict at that seminar, you don't try to implement the whole binder at once. You take one single concept and you practice it intentionally in your real-world environment.
Let me address the listener's internal doubt here, though. You might be thinking, I can't just role-play conflict resolution during a high-stakes quarterly review with my boss. It's not a safe environment.
And you shouldn't role-play in that environment.
Right.
But you can practice a micro skill. For example, your deliberate practice in that high-stakes Tuesday meeting could be a commitment to simply pause for 3 full seconds before answering any hostile question.
Oh, I love that.
Right. That is a low-stakes, invisible practice feel.
Invisible, right, because no one even knows you're doing it.
Exactly. You do that for a month. You
Yeah.
ask a trusted peer to watch you and tell you if you actually did it. That's your real feedback.
And the reflection.
Then you take 5 minutes on Friday to write down how those pauses change the dynamic of the conversation. That's your structured reflection.
Wow.
You move from passive consumption of a binder to active integration of a skill.
That shifts the entire paradigm. It perfectly ties into a quote from a commenter named Catherine C. that really drives the thesis of this entire deep dive home.
Which quote is that?
She summed up the core problem by saying, "We treat leadership like a title, not a craft."
Ooh, that hits the nail on the head.
It really does.
A title is something you are awarded. It's static. Once it is bestowed upon you, your only job is to hold on to it and defend it.
Right.
But a craft is dynamic. A master woodworker or a concert cellist never looks at their work and says, I have mastered my craft. I am completely finished learning.
They're perpetually refining their mechanics.
Always. Leadership and really any professional skill in a wicked environment has to be viewed through that exact same lens.
Okay, to bring all these pieces together for you, we've explored the glaring gap between the 90-10 athlete training split and the 95-5 corporate split.
Yep.
And why confusing execution with development is just a recipe for burnout. We unpacked why the chaotic, wicked nature of business means you must train how you think, not just what you do.
Absolutely.
We shattered the illusion of tenure, remembering that driving the same commute for 20 years just locks in bad habits if you aren't using deliberate practice, feedback, and reflection.
So true.
And most importantly, we addressed the ego trap of omniscience that stops leaders from treating their role as a continuous craft.
And if we truly embrace that leadership is a craft demanding deliberate practice, I want to leave you with a final, lingering question to ponder as you jump back into your day.
What's the question?
If you accept the premise that you need to train to survive the complexity of your work, what does your specific practice field look like on a random Tuesday afternoon?
Oh, that's good.
When the stakes are high, the pressure is on, and the emails are piling up, how can you create micro moments of low-stakes practice for yourself? Where is your gym?
That is the perfect question to reflect on. You have to find a way to stop just showing up to the Olympics in your street clothes, expecting to win gold without putting the work in.
Yeah, you have to build your own gym.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Phoenix Performance Partners article. Keep questioning the defaults, keep refining your craft, and most importantly, keep learning. We'll catch you next time.